And if I go to a product manager who actually owns a lot of features and delivery for that code, they have no clue about it. And it's nothing wrong because they don't need to. They're not writing code, and they
Yeah,
need to
yeah,
know
yeah,
about
yeah.
it. But when they have conversations with other product managers and the stakeholders about what to build, are they talking about what capabilities exist and what code exists to deliver it? Or they're just talking about what they want
The
to build
features.
and the
They just
features?
talk about
It's
the features.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Welcome to Embracing Digital Transformation, where we investigate effective change leveraging people, process, and technology.
This is Darren Pulsford, Chief Solution Architect, author, and most importantly, your host. On this episode, Big Change Starts Small, Digital Transformation from the Ground Up with Luv Kapur from Bit Software.
Yeah.
Luv, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Darren. Thank you for having me.
Hey, when we first talked, I remembered, what's this guy talking about? I mean, code as an asset or liability you must have a financial background. I don't know. But before we dive into that, on Embracing Digital Transformation, I only have superheroes. I only interview superheroes. Every superhero has a background story. What's your background story, Luv?
I have a very interesting story on how I landed. I am a developer first. I used to work as a platform engineering lead for a big financial firm here in Ontario, Canada, where I led three platform teams that built reusable services and software for internal teams. We were working on a big pension fund, so we managed 100 plus billions dollars of asset in a year. And one of the biggest things for us was how efficiently we can deliver software. So I'm a big code guy. I love writing software. I love managing team. I love seeing my customers happy. And as part of being the engineering lead in my last financial firm, one of the biggest tasks that was given to me was how to scale it across the org. And this is where I found Bit. Bit is an open source tool and a collaborative system that helps teams build composable software. So I was one of the early enterprise customers at Bit when they were very relatively small. So I found Bit, I onboarded them. We started with a small team. And then eventually before I left, it was being used by the entire department, almost about 100 devs using it, building, tens and hundreds of services and products for end users. And that's where the Bit team reached out and said that if I would like to join them and work with them. And now I'm an engineering lead at Bit. So my transition
there you
was
go, yeah.
Yes. So my transition went from being one of their
okay, Luv. So we're going to talk. We're going to tap into this a little bit on effective change in organizations. But before we get there, I've got to ask you about your name. It's a unique name. You don't find it very often, and you're from Ontario, Canada. But are you originally from Ontario as well, or?
No. I'm originally from India. I actually immigrated here to Ontario when I was 18 years old. And I came here to do my computer science graduation. My name always comes up. Everyone always surprised because
Well, of course, it's an interesting name.
Yes, and it helps because it's easy not to forget me if you remember if you once you hear my name.
So, all right, so this is really interesting because a lot of organizations are looking for digital transformation. You did a digital transformation inside the company that you were working for by bringing Bit in and propagating it everywhere. So I want to touch on that a little bit, and then we can talk about code as a true asset. And the reason I want to touch on that is a lot of organizations have a hard time with adoption of new technologies. So I guess my question to you is, how did it get started? It sounded like it started with just you first, right? You evaluated this new technology Bit. You started working with it at first. And then what did you do to help propagate it throughout the organization?
I think one of the biggest, most important thing when embracing digital transformation and doing it at a scale at an enterprise where there are a lot of teams involved is not to go from a top-down approach. You don't want an executive who is not ingrained at a day-to-day basis come and tell you that this is the tool we want to use. It needs to emerge from the need within the company itself, and I think that helps a lot. In my case, when I was working at my last previous company, the biggest need we had was We had stakeholders and we had end users that overlapped across multiple teams. And there were multiple teams building multiple products at any given time. And they were complaining to our product managers and our VPs about how their end user experience differs. If their workflow involves interacting with multiple applications that are built by multiple teams, they can tell that they have to relearn some of their muscle memory. Some of the things were different, and psychologically you catch on to it. If you do the same thing tens and twenties, 100 times a day, you realize how much it affects you if it's not consistent. And that need for consistency started this whole digital transformation initiative for my then the boss there, where he reached out to our team. Our team used to build applications for public equity and collateral management software for portfolio managers.
Okay.
And the part of this workflow is you need to source equities and then you need to find collateral for it. So the workflow always entangles a lot. So as part of this, my VP reached out to me and said, "Hey, Luv, our end users and stakeholders are complaining they're not necessarily happy, and we have a big project coming up with a lot of compliance checks. How can we make the end user experience more streamlined, more consistent, and also see that we are delivering more efficiently because the work's going to ramp up?" And stakeholder and executives are always more concerned about adding headcounts because not always adding people to a project helps.
Oh,
At
no,
the
no,
end.
it kills a project a lot of
Yes,
times.
yes. Sometimes there's this thinking that you can add more people to something and it will fix it. In software, it doesn't scale linearly all the
No, it
time.
doesn't.
Yeah. So for me, this is where I realize is there are a lot of common functionality, capabilities that are shared across, whether that's payment processing, compliance check, monitoring, end user notifications. And teams are rebuilding this again and again and again. If there is a new need comes up, a portfolio manager, a product manager comes up and discusses the feature. And especially when you work with different teams, you realize, hey, I've heard this before in a meeting before. Are we rebuilding this?
So you guys got stuck in the trap that I see a lot of corporations get stuck in. New project, new team, ground up development, right? Oh yeah, there's not a lot of reuse happening. But that was one of the big promises of software development is reuse, right? I mean, that's what we were taught in school, right? But in reality, it doesn't happen, and that caused all that inconsistency in the user interfaces too, right? Because different teams are doing it, their interpretation of requirements is a little bit different. That's a huge problem. So it sounds to me like you guys had a very distinct problem, and you had some experience with ways of solving that problem, and it kind of propagated across the company. Is that kind of the best way to think about it?
Yes, that's the best way to think about it. Exactly. We had this problem, we tried to solve it, and then once it caught on with other teams, they realized, you know what? Why aren't we building software this to begin with? Like we didn't need a push to build this to begin with. It makes sense. Like it clicks. And this is where it started with a one-person team, myself, and a part-time consultant we hired who helped me on the design side of things to build these reusable set of components and services. At the end of 2 years, we had dedicated three teams with 20 developers that were just building this common platform and worked as a service team for other developers. And productivity improvement, efficiency improvement, time to market, code quality, and at the end user improvement happened on terms of what we were delivering because it was all consistent, and emerged from this little initiative of
So,
thinking
so,
about reuse.
but all right. So you mentioned before that you need kind of a grassroots movement to make these things happen, but you also had some top air cover from your management saying, "Hey, we're going to spend some money to do this right." Otherwise, you couldn't have the money to do it. All right, to have all these teams doing things that, if management didn't deem it contributing to the bottom or top line, they wouldn't have funded it. They would have just said, "Nah, guys, you need to focus on just delivering features." So it's an interesting dilemma, right? You need that grassroots movement because you understand problems really well, but you also need executive support.
Absolutely. And it's also about like speaking their language and understanding. Like, the communication that happened with the executives was about, um, we have delivered this feature in the past with X amount of devs in X amount of months. Our goal is to build capabilities that will reduce the amount of time it takes, and reduce the amount of headcount it takes. And that sparks.
Oh,
That's
they
saying,
love
oh,
that story, right?
and that's the trigger for them. Is like, we are all focused on the same stakeholder value, and we're going to do things differently to improve that delivery at the end. The focus is not just going to be about, hey, we have to get this feature out, we need to get this product out. It's about how efficiently we can do it, and in future, how we can use this compound effect to deliver more efficiently, because the work's going to come.
Well, so that's the interesting part that I think where you fit in, and what we talked about before was not only did you bring in new technology, you shifted the culture of the organization to be, instead of point solutions that you're developing, you're going to develop frameworks that are going to be reusable so that you can do more rapid application development on top of it, new features quicker, all that stuff. So it took a long-term vision, because you mentioned at the beginning, a lot of times they just want to write an application for a specific thing. They spin up a project team just to do that. This takes a cultural shift as well, it sounds like.
Absolutely, it takes a culture shift. It also takes an organizational structure shift, because you start thinking of your headcount and your people as more malleable, more composable. I mean, I call
Yeah.
this term a composable organization, where, hey, if my priorities change even from top down because of how our stakeholder alignment has to change, and I have to shift resources for building something, I can easily move current devs and current resources and ship faster. And that only happens if you build in a more reusable, composable way, because you start thinking about onboarding times. I'm adding specialized skill devs to it, or can I take my existing devs and just move them to strategically? Product
You know,
managers
this
start.
is,
Yes,
yeah, this is really interesting because it reminds me of the movie industry. Say, think about this. When they create a movie, they form a small corporation and they hire everyone under that corporation from the bigger corporation, right? You may have people on contract that do makeup and lighting and electric and actors and all the support staff that goes with directors, all that stuff. They form this company to create one thing, and then they get rid of it.
yes,
And it's fascinating because it works really well in that industry. But in enterprises and corporations, we don't think that way around projects. We think, I'm going to fund this project and it's going to stay there forever. And that team is always going to be there, right? But that's not reality, or there's so much inefficiency built into that. So what you're talking about, composable organizations, is that same concept. I'm going to compose a team for a certain period of time to get this project done, and then I'm going to disperse that team and push them back into the pool to be put onto another team for a certain period of time. I think we do a lot of flyby composability where, oh, you get these guys for 2 weeks. Well, 2 weeks is not long enough, right?
yes.
Or yeah, you know how it goes. So yeah, this is a really interesting concept. So organizational change, culture change, and then also you had technology that came to play to help um, as a catalyst for this change. Is that kind of how you see Bit? How Bit fit into this?
Absolutely, because at the end, you need a technology that facilitated it and made it easier and not at overhead. Because there will be pushback for bringing something new,
Oh, of
even from
course.
today,
Yeah.
and you want that transition to be smooth, and it makes sense for developers who will be executing it, and the executives who will be planning and strategizing it on top of it. Bit comes in because Bit gives us this end-to-end composable platform and a lot of visibility. The biggest problem right now at the execution level, a lot of this is lack of visibility. A lot of code gets written, and if I go to a product manager who actually owns a lot of features and delivery for that code, they have no clue about it. And it's nothing wrong, because they don't need to. They're not writing code, and they
Yeah,
need to
yeah,
know
yeah,
about
yeah.
it. But when they have conversations with other product managers and the stakeholders about what to build, are they talking about what capabilities exist? and what code exists to deliver it, or they're just talking about what they want
The
to build
features.
and the
They're just
features.
talking about the
It's
features.
yeah, exactly. Yes.
So you know
And
what this screams? This screams the need of solution and system architects that understand how everything fits together. And I think as an industry, we've kind of moved away from that because we're so focused on delivering something so quick, right? That we forget about solid foundational architectural elements that are needed because people deem that as slow. Because in the past, like in the 90s and early 2000s, when you brought an architect in, they would create a 500-page architectural design document that matched a marketing requirements document that then got into design. And no code was written for the first 9 months of the project. And people are like going, wait, I need something now, right? And then we kind of swapped into this crazy, super fast agile methodology, which I'm a big proponent of agile. But people started throwing out architecture. They said, we don't need architecture anymore. Let's just code, right? Because in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we have to give a demo. So I think we've kind of moved away from some of those core foundational elements that we need, which reusability and things like that. So it sounds like Bit, and I want you to explain that a little bit more to me. It sounds like Bit, though, is kind of embracing more of that reusability, asset management, where assets are code and libraries and things like that. Is that kind of what it is?
yeah, that's correct. And before I go into bit, I will touch upon my title was actually a solutions architect when I worked on
Oh, there you go.
this digital transformation at my last job. The problem was that the image and the perspective of an architect has gone to a complete extreme earlier, where they're not hands-on. They will sit in their office. They will design these architectural diagrams, but never get to execute on top of it, and then it ends up being a burden on the actual delivery team
That's
itself,
right.
which is not the path we are. It's the only path we should take with architecture. What we built when we were embracing this digital transformation is to have a balance. Like, you need to have fast delivery teams. We call them vertical teams, product teams that have skill set from every slice, whether someone from DevOps, design, who does front end, who does back end, and that composes an entire team. They're focused on a specific end user and delivering value to it. But to make sure that team itself is effective and efficient, you have these horizontal teams with unique skill set and maybe a more core specialized skill set that just act as service teams to those teams. And they are not there to dictate stuff. They are there to work with them. And I think that was the biggest change for us. What we
Oh,
introduced was
interesting.
called a floater model with these service teams. And I used to lead this platform portfolio of multiple teams, where we would say that for a few sprints, when you deliver this feature, I will have my headcount join you. And our goal is to help you deliver faster. We are not here to tell you what to do. We will actually write code for you. And when we write code, we will assess what is common, because we have insight across multiple teams, because we join
Yeah,
multiple
yeah, yeah,
teams,
yeah.
and then we take that knowledge back. We build these reusable services, we deliver it, we integrate it, and then off you go and you focus on delivering fast. So that mindset changed, because we weren't coming in as like, hey, we are coming here as architects with strict guidelines, and if you don't do this is not reaching production. I think that's one thing to address. And this is where Bit came in, because the biggest challenge with building composable and these systems that make delivery teams efficient is the overhead of dependencies. Now, instead of one big system that does everything, you might have dependencies on a lot of different
Well, yeah,
features owned
especially with
by.
the rise of microservice architectures. And a lot
Absolutely.
of times those dependencies are not implicit
Exactly.
or explicit. They're implicit. I just got that from that service over there. I don't know what that service does. It just gave me stuff, right?
Yes. Yes. And then you lack visibility above, like, oh, something's not breaking. I don't own it. Someone else own it. I have no clue about it. And then that's a dangerous, place to get into, where you start treating parts of your own system, which is cohesive, as black box. You don't want to think of them as black box. You need to have a complete understanding about it. This is where Bit gives complete visibility and discoverability and manages dependency management for it. A Bit is an end-to-end platform. We have an open source CLI tool, which almost acts like Git. So Git, every software dev is pretty much know what Git does. It gives you this version
Yeah, yeah,
control
yeah. It's a source code management system.
management system. So same for Bit, where Bit helps you manage all your code and isolates them in individual components, does versioning for them, auto manages dependencies, shows you a graph, gives you insights on metrics, on the consumptions, because a component that's called reusable is not useful until there is adoption for it. That's the biggest
Right,
thing.
right, right.
And if you can't track adoption and usage of it, you don't know if you're building right at the end. If
You
teams
know,
refuse,
that's an interesting thing. I think a lot of organizations that do have these reusable libraries or shared libraries, no one really knows if they're being used or not.
yes,
Right. So this is pretty clever. So adding visibility and traceability into your asset library is one of the key features that Bit provides. It sounds like.
absolutely. And then you have complete insight on who is building usable features, what their dependencies are, what their dependents are, who they depend on to build it, because that gives you
Right.
insight as well. And then the conversation completely changes because not only devs know what they have built and what uses it, product managers knows, because in Bit a component is way more than just source code. It comes with complete documentation of what it does. It comes with
Right.
isolated tests of what it does. It comes with extracted API information and all of that. So what that means that when product managers come in and discuss a feature, they start looking at their component catalog on Bit and saying, you know what, this is the capabilities we have, and these are the capabilities being built by other teams. If I have to ship you this, I can give you a more accurate estimate on how or how we can ship this, when we can ship this efficiently, because I have these insight, which I never had because all of these insight were lost in a code repository on GitHub before.
Right, 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 right. So what you've basically done is you've taken code assets, put metadata around it that makes it searchable, and then you also gave the ability to track how often those assets are used and build dependency graphs between everything. So I can really get a real good look at what's going on in my stack. And you've empowered the product managers, right? Because before the product managers, and I have 10 kids. I don't know if you know that, Love. I've got 10 kids, and I've got two product managers in those 10 kids, and I've got three software engineers and a bunch of teachers, and and I talk to these kids, and the product manager kids are always like, I wish engineers would give me accurate information. And the engineers are saying, I wish the product managers could, figure things out. They don't understand requirements sufficiently enough. What you've done is you kind of bridge that gap by saying, hey, here are all the assets that are available that have been developed. Product managers can pull those together and say, hey, we don't need to do everything. We can leverage these here, and we only need to do this one part over here. I think it's clever. I think it's really clever.
Absolutely, and it bridges them together. They work so closely, and it still seems to have a lot of black box understanding of each other's work.
Yeah, yeah.
And where and that also at times leads to a little bit of distrust between like engineers, like product managers don't understand the complexity it takes to deliver something. Product managers don't understand why devs are saying a certain feature estimate is different from what they envision at the end.
Oh,
So
yeah, yeah.
it's a nice bridge to bring them together, give visibility into each other's realms a lot, and plan more intelligently and deliver more intelligently at the end as well.
So Love, tell me how you guys engage with customers. Do you start with the engineers? Because it was an open source project, and now you have commercial versions or supported versions, or do you start at the executive level and work down? What's your typical engagement model with customers?
A typical engagement model always starts with engineers first, because they will be the one adopting the technology. and we want them to have the as smooth experience as possible, which helps a lot on the onboarding side. Ideally, what we look for is an in-house champion, someone who has understand there's a need for Bit and can champion and get one team to onboard Bit and then showcase the benefits they got from Bit, and then other teams adopt. We did the same at AT&T. AT&T is one of our biggest customers of Bit, where a small team started using, and now the complete AT&T website is powered by Bit, and multiple teams are using it. At Bit. So engineers take up Bit. We give them a small POC. We give them an option whether they want to start with a greenfield project, something new they're starting and want to build the Bit way of doing things with individual reusable components, or they can take an existing project and where they want to migrate into a more reusable, composable architecture, and then we assist them through it.
Now, does it replace Git? Because a lot of organizations are using GitHub or Enterprise Git, whatever. Does it replace Git, or does it sit side by side with Git?
It sits side by side. It doesn't replace Git at all.
So it's not a rip and replace what they currently have. It's an augment. So it's not super disruptive, which is really cool.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the goal is to keep your usual dev workflow as close to what it exists as possible, and just give you an uplift to make this transition to this more composable, reusable architecture very seamless and smooth. And this is where Bit tries to take care of all the overhead that comes with it, like we talked about. Versioning, dependency management, giving you insight about visibility, because now these are completely isolated components, and showing you the dependency graph, and et cetera.
And it'll work with any language, no problem. It's language agnostic.
Right now, it works mostly with JavaScript, TypeScript, and front-end frameworks. We have a Harmony core engine that we wrote that powers the composability, which is language agnostic. And the reason we wrote it is because we plan to expand to other languages as we grow. Yes.
Nice. Okay, so I could possibly use this for other things beyond just code. I can use it for other assets like video shorts, possibly, or other things, because you're really just managing assets, right, and relationships between those assets.
Absolutely, and one of the things we noticed that product managers use Bit for exclusively MDX markdown files, where they write specs and detailed diagrams.
There you go, MD files,
Yes, and they will attach Figma designs to it, like they work with the designer, and now they have a dedicated component that talks everything about the delivery of the feature. It details its design, and they can keep versioning, keep all the version history of it, have collaboration on it, and if it references another feature set or feature specification, they can see it in the dependency graph as well.
That very, very nice. Well, hey, this is really cool technology. If people want to find out more about it, Luv, where do they go to find out more about Bit and to communicate with you? What's the best way to?
Best way is you can check out bit.dev. We have recently launched our new Hope AI model that will help you actually build a composable platform with just a prompt. And this is one of our first.
Sweet.
This is our way to make your onboarding relatively smooth. So you write down what you want to build, a platform or a design system, and it will give you a complete set of reusable components that actually compose that system, and then you can build on top of it. So I would say check out bit.dev, log on to it, play with Bit, play with our Hope, and build your first reusable composable platform with it.
That's awesome. Luv, thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate your time. This has been really insightful. I get to hear, if instead of from an executive, all these philosophies on change, you've lived it, you've been in the middle of it. So thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Darren. This was very nice, and I'm glad I got to share all the insights about Bit and composable architecture.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to Embracing Digital Transformation today. If you enjoyed our podcast, give it 5 stars on your favorite podcasting site or YouTube channel. You can find out more information about Embracing Digital Transformation at embracingdigital.org. Until next time, go out and embrace the digital revolution.